We're joined now by former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, ACLJ Senior Counsel. Secretary Pompeo, let me just ask you, because we keep seeing this doubling down by Ilhan Omar, which puts Nancy Pelosi in an interesting spot because she tried to say this was done last time. They said she corrected her statement, but she's going back on and she's continuing with the line of trying to cast it all on the fact, well, really this is all about my support for the International Criminal Court getting jurisdiction over the United States and Israel. I mean, this is a specific. She's an activist for this, and I think people need to acknowledge that and understand what she's doing every time she goes on in the media.
Yes, Jordan, this is intentional. She knows precisely what she's doing. She knows exactly who she's tweaking and how she's doing it, and she has a deep view that is at fundamental odds with the way America protects itself, protects its own people. Right? This playing footsie with the International Criminal Court, we have nothing to do with this. We didn't sign the deal. We didn't sign up for it. They're trying to go after Americans who were serving in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're going after Israelis that have just been doing work to defend the country of Israel. She knows precisely what little cute game she's playing, and it is dangerous. And we shouldn't let other Democrats who claim to be Zionists, pro-Israel, who claim to say, no, we don't want our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, all our public officials subject to this rogue court in The Hague. They should have to declare. Now, you got to pick a side on this one. You can't say, oh, we talked to her and she issued a statement. That's all just silliness. We know what she believes, and we need the leadership in the Democrat Party to distance itself from them.
It's interesting, Mr. Secretary, that, of course, I've been to The Hague. I've argued multiple times at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. In fact, on both of those issues, both on Israel's behalf and presenting an argument on why the United States, to the full panel of the court, on why the United States should not be a subject to jurisdiction. And as you said, because we haven't signed the Rome Statute, there is no jurisdiction. Now, that court does not follow precedent. They make it up as they go. It's an embarrassment with the rules of evidence. People they've prosecuted have had their convictions overturned because of the duplicity of the evidence, the lack of disclosure that the prosecutors have made. Yet Ilhan Omar and this whole group on the left are bent on having the United States part of this Rome Statute, part of the ICC. Now, so far the Biden administration says, well, we're opposed to it. My concern here, and is the pressure from the left is going to mount over time. And I don't know where Joe Biden's heart is on this. I don't know where Secretary Blinken's heart is on this, but the pressure coming in on the left is very strong, and this would be a very dangerous move if the United States were to become part of the ICC.
Jay, you're so right. You've been there. You've lived that. And the ACLJ has done amazing work in front of the ICC, but you've lived it. Her mission said, I think you nailed it. Her mission said is twofold. One is this issue around the ICC, right? She talks about we want all victims of crimes against humanity. There were no crimes against humanity committed by the Americans. When we had a soldier behave in a way that was inconsistent with the rules of armed conflict, we did everything we could to prosecute them. We want people doing it right, and I'm proud of that. We don't need three crazy people, including Fatou Bensouda, the woman running the ICC prosecutors court, who is fundamentally corrupt, and we sanctioned her for that in the Trump administration. She's trying to do two things. One, she's trying to create a moral equivalence between the United States and terrorists, and that is a really dangerous thing. And then second, she's trying to create some space to grow international law, so these countries that feel like they've been oppressed can have a space. And she is creating the umbrella for them to do just that, to come after Americans and Israelis who are doing good work to defend their own people.
Mr. Secretary, let me ask you a question on Iran. A UN investigator on human rights has called for an independent inquiry into allegations of state-ordered executions of thousands of political prisoners in 1988 and the role played by President-elect Ibrahim Raisi as the Tehran deputy prosecutor. Could this call for by this investigator be used to put pressure on Iran in these nuclear talks going on?
Well, I was happy to see that. 30 years too late, maybe.
Yeah.
Look, we know what happened in 1988. This fellow is known, and frankly, he doesn't walk away from it. He's the butcher of Tehran. He killed multiple thousands of his own people. There was a commission of 3 that he served on. He is a horrible man with Iranian blood on his hands. And I'm happy that they're going to do an independent investigation. I know if they do it well and they do it honestly, we know what they will find. I can't imagine this convincing the Biden administration to walk away from the nuclear deal. They know who Ibrahim Raisi is as well. There's no doubt in the American mind. You'll recall we sanctioned him. We had sufficient U.S. evidence to sanction him for his human rights violations. We did that in 2019. I'm happy to have additional inquiry. I'd love the world more broadly to know what Ibrahim Raisi did. The fact that we are sitting down at the table and going to cut a deal with him, a deal that will allow the terror regime to have hundreds of billions of dollars more wealth, is an enormously dangerous activity.
We also know, Secretary Pompeo, this over the weekend there were new airstrikes against Iranian proxies in Iraq and Syria, and so there's that, but then there's also reporting that the United States government is considering lifting sanctions specifically on the Ayatollah himself. The mixed messaging that we're carrying out airstrikes against Iranian aggression through their proxies, and at the same time putting forward that we're trying to get back into the nuclear deal, and even considering lifting sanctions on the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Jordan, this just highlights the folly of the whole deal. I am confident in those talks. The Iranians are telling the Americans, we're going to continue to enrich uranium to higher and higher levels, and we're going to head down the path towards a nuclear weapon. But we don't really want a nuclear weapon. But we're going to head down a path to a nuclear weapon unless you lift sanctions on not only the Ayatollah, but on the president-elect Raisi himself. We'll lift sanctions on the IRGC and other terror outfits. And at best, we'll get an agreement that they'll slow down their enrichment program for a handful of years. I don't know how you hold those, to your point, I don't know how you hold those two thoughts in your head at the same time, Jordan. It's truly odd, dangerous, and illogical.
Mike, there's another thing I thought about also, and I mentioned this on our broadcast yesterday. In diplomatic negotiations and multilateral negotiations that I've been involved in over the years of practicing law and dealing with foreign governments, there was, the phrase, the confidence-building measure. So the United States confidence-building measure with negotiating with the Iranians in Vienna is, we're considering lifting sanctions against the Iranian regime, but also against the Ayatollah himself. That's the confidence-building measure. The confidence-building measure of the Iranians is we use proxies to kill American soldiers. I mean, this shows you how ridiculous this procedure is. You, as Secretary of State, were instrumental, really key, in sanctioning both the Ayatollah and the now president-elect. And I think it'd be important in the last minute and a half we got left here for people to understand how important it is to send that message of sanction.
Those sanctions did two things. One, they sent a message, an important message, that we weren't going to tolerate the Iranians killing their own people, these massive human rights violations, that we weren't going to tolerate their continued terror efforts, right, these proxy forces. I mean, they're launching missiles from Yemen into Saudi Arabia almost every day. No country should have to tolerate that. These are Iranian rockets. We saw what Hamas did, launching rockets in Israel. Those sanctions send a message. The second thing they did is they denied resources to the regime. Right? You need money and wealth to build out terror proxies, to pay the soldiers, to build the artillery, to continue to improve your programs. We denied them. I think we saw the Iranian senior leadership last week announce that we denied them over $100 billion of resources in the course of what was only about 18 or 24 months. There are two purposes: to lift those sanctions. We'll have things blowing up all over Europe, all over the Middle East in increasing numbers, and we'll have an ephemeral nuclear agreement. It's a bad outcome, and I have no confidence in any of the measures that they're building.
Secretary Pompeo, we always appreciate you joining us on the broadcast as Senior Counsel with the ACLJ to discuss these issues, the importance of these issues.